Dazai is a depressed middle-aged man with nothing to look forward to in life, so he gives up and decides to end it all. On a cold, rainy day, Dazai and his lover are seen walking together without an umbrella until they arrive at a clearing with a raging river. This is exactly what Dazai was hoping for since the rain made the river strong enough to sweep a person away, and right now, he wants to be that person. He and Saken came here today because they are sick of this world and plan isekai themselves by drowning in the River Kun together. This way, they will be able to keep their promise to always be together, so before they jump in, they tie their arms together in solidarity. However, as we all know, there is only one true king of isekai, and he isn't going to let his job get stolen. So despite them being in the middle of the forest, Truck Kun shows up out of nowhere to take them out before River Kun does, even if it doesn't make much sense. In the next moment, Dazai wakes up in a cathedral, and as he gets up, he is greatly confused by everything he sees around him, but he just assumes this must be the world people get sent to after they die. The style is different from what he's used to, but he will get used to it eventually. Just then, a voice calls out to him and explains to Dazai that he has been summoned here as the hero of this world. The woman's name is Annette, and she says she is tasked with guiding those who end up here. To prove that this is indeed another world, she directs him to look out this window as a dragon and various other mythical creatures are seen roaming around in the world of Zauberberg. She tells Dazai that he is destined to become the hero of this world and restore the light, but he doesn't seem too happy about it. He wanted one thing, and that was to die alongside his lover Saken. But not only did he end up in a fantasy adventure instead, Saken isn't even here with him, so he feels like he has broken his promise to die with her. Oh well, that just means he has to try dying again, so Dazai chugs an entire bottle of pills and patiently waits for the sweet embrace of death by overdose. Annette freaks out after seeing Dazai poison himself, so she immediately begins using magic to detoxify his body, but as Dazai regains consciousness, he tells her to stop trying to save him because it's really inconvenient. She doesn't listen to him and asks Dazai to stand up so he can fulfill his mission as this world's savior. However, Dazai doesn't even want to save himself, much less a random world that he just ended up in. He never asked to end up here in the first place, but this surprises Annette, so she asks if he happened to get hit by a truck. Dazai recalls a brief encounter with a truck, so Annette explains that she hired Truck Kun to isekai people here as part of the service she offers. The way it works is simple. Truck Kun finds someone who is depressed or deeply unhappy with their life, which is why he usually camps outside League of Legends tournaments. But after he has run over his target, they get sent to this world and get a second chance to live a happy life, and they usually end up feeling better. The fact that Dazai got run over means he must have been really unhappy with his life, so she doesn't see why he wouldn't be excited for a second chance. While she may be right about Dazai's old life being miserable, that doesn't mean he is going to be any happier in this world. In fact, he is pretty pissed that Annette and her isekai service ruined what was meant to be the perfect conclusion to his story. All he wanted was to spend his last moments of life with his lover, but she had to go and ruin it for him. Annette can't believe Dazai is so upset with her, but she's not worried about it since he will surely change his opinion once he gets to see his awesome stats. However, as she opens the stat window, she is shocked to see that Dazai possesses abysmally low health and mana. In fact, his health is so low that he would probably die from a stiff breeze in his current state. Annette refuses to believe Dazai is so weak, so she checks to see if he has some kind of broken ability to balance out his weak stats. But as she opens his ability window, she finds out that Dazai has no skills at all aside from Depression level 5. Dazai is basically a glass cannon, but with no cannonballs, so Annette doesn't know what to do with him since something like this has never happened before. Dazai decides to leave the cathedral since there's nothing left for him here, but Annette feels the need to make up for her mistake, so she grabs Dazai's hand and apologizes for having him brought to this world since he wasn't meant to come here. She unfortunately doesn't have the power to send him back to Earth, but she can't let him go and live by himself either since he wouldn't last 10 minutes outside with his current stat points. Dazai isn't surprised to learn that he's incredibly weak since no matter where he goes, he has always been a failure. Annette apologizes once more for her mistake and pleads with Dazai to stay in the cathedral for the time being since it's not safe for him to go outside. With his current stats, he would just end up getting snatched by a dragon or something, so she thinks it's in his best interest to wait before he does anything dangerous. Dazai thanks her for worrying about him, but he says her concern isn't needed since he is just looking for a place to die. Hearing him say this leads Annette to think that he may actually be different from all the others. When she first took this job, she was genuinely excited to guide the summoned heroes on their journeys, but since most of them were depressed League players, they were so annoying to be around that she ended up hating her job. Her tasks can basically devolve into ego-stroking the heroes to get them to accept the mission, but it's different with Dazai. As he's about to walk out, Annette drops her staff and chases after Dazai, pleading with him to at least pick a profession before he leaves, but Daze turns to her and says there's no need for that since he is a natural-born writer, and that's all he will ever be. With that, he closes the door behind himself and says goodbye to Annette. And once Dazai is gone, Annette falls to the floor and begins thinking about how Dazai is the exact kind of person she has been waiting for. Meanwhile, Dazai has made it to some plains outside and is trying to get directions from a sign, but he doesn't understand a single word on it, so he just goes back to popping pills. Just then, he hears a voice saying he has just spotted a landmark, so 5 points of experience have been awarded. He may just be high off the pills, but he could swear that sound just came from his head, and it really hurts since he suffers from migraines, so he tries to get it to stop. However, celebration music goes off in his head as he has now gone up to level 2, and the resulting migraines make him want to die even more. Just then, he hears a girl screaming for help nearby, so he turns around and sees the girl getting assaulted by a death tree. She notices Daze and asks him to help her since she'll be killed by the tree if she doesn't escape soon, and the tree seems to be wrapping her in its branches more and more by the second. Daze just stands there as the tree fondles the girl, and he seems to be enjoying the show. So much so that he asks her if she's okay about him writing a novel about this later, but the girl doesn't care about any novels and just wants Daze to rescue her already. To his credit, Daze gives it his best shot, but he can't reach her at all, so he just gives up. So the tree grabs him by the neck and hangs him up next to the girl. There's nothing he can do about it now, so Daze just introduces himself to the girl while he's hanging and says they are probably not going to last much longer. The girl blames Daze for their predicament since he couldn't do anything to stop the death tree. And now that they have been captured, the death tree is going to use its suction ability to suck out all the nutrition from their bodies, so in the next few minutes they are guaranteed to be dead. Daze says he's happy to hear that, but this freaks the girl out because what kind of lunatic would want to die by getting himself sucked dry? As Daze starts feeling weak, he looks like he's about to bust before suddenly slumping over. The girl starts to panic thinking Daze has actually died, but moments later, the branch that was strangling Daze begins to wither away, and the death tree ends up being destroyed because of it. The girl and Daze are freed as the tree disintegrates, but Daze is disappointed that he failed to die again. Thanks to his inadvertent victory, Daze levels up again, and the girl is left confused and amazed because she believes Daze intentionally made the death tree die by absorbing the poison in his body, but she also finds it weird that Daze would poison himself to begin with. She thanks Daze for saving her, while also apologizing for calling him useless earlier, but he doesn't think he did anything special. All he managed to do was fail to die, and he isn't happy about it in the slightest. The girl doesn't understand why Daze is depressed, but he saved her life, so she sincerely wants to thank him. She suddenly has an idea and invites Daze to come over to her house so she can express her gratitude properly, and Daze sees no issue with this. So as the girl extends her hand and asks what she should call him, he says she can call him Sensei. However, as he grabs her hand, he is reminded of Sakshan, and that gets him to wonder if she might have ended up in this world as well, and if that's the case, then he might be able to find and reunite with his love. He has finally found a reason to stay alive in this world, so he will make sure he finds Sakshan no matter where he is in the world, and when he does, they'll finally be able to die together. His motives may be questionable, but at least he's not actively trying to die anymore. With that said, he has no idea where to even start looking, so he heads back to Annette's cathedral, and Annette is overjoyed that he decided to come back to her, so she can finally shoot her shot. However, as the cat girl shows up behind Sensei, Annette freezes in shock because she hadn't thought Sensei would find a woman so soon after going outside for the first time. He says he has a question to ask Annette, so she prepares herself, thinking he wants to ask about her. But Sensei says he wants to find a girl named Sakshan, so he was hoping Annette might have some information on that. Annette is disappointed that Sensei is asking about another woman, but she doesn't have any good clues about where Sakshan might be, so Sensei is back to the drawing board. Since he has nowhere to go, he follows the cat girl to her house. The girl tells Sensei to cheer up since there is still plenty of time for him to find Sakshan, but since her house is still pretty far away, she suggests they should stop at the castle town of Roth so they can take a break. She then holds his hand so that she can lead him there. However, Annette is also here for some reason, and she won't stand for such unholy behavior while they are out in public. The cat girl yells at Annette for smacking her hand over something as trivial as hand-holding, and while she's on the topic of yelling at her, she questions why Annette is here in the first place, since it's not normal for a clergy to feel the need to abandon her post and follow people all the way out here. Annette doesn't really want to explain herself, but from the way she's looking at Sensei, the cat girl can already tell that she's in love with him. Annette denies having such impure intentions and claims that she is just here to watch over the weak otherworlder that she mistakenly summoned. As soon as the cat girl realizes that Sensei is from another world, She finally understands why he was so strong back when he saved her. Annette doesn't believe what the cat girl says since she saw Sensei's stats personally, and she knows for a fact that he is weakling. The cat girl still asserts that Sensei must be strong since he was able to defeat a death tree and save her life in the process, but this is terrible news for Annette since Sensei saving the cat girl's life is the first step to developing a romance. She can't believe she's already losing her chance to cat girl, but while they've been bickering this whole time, Sensei found something really interesting. It's a coffin that's the perfect size for him, so he climbs inside and says he has been feeling dizzy ever since he came here, so he's going to take a nap for a while, and they should wake him up when they get to the Tao. After that, he says goodnight to Annette and the cat girl, but the cat girl is mad that he still isn't calling her by her name. So Annette jokes that Sensei likes her more because he can actually remember her name. After that, Annette cheerfully ties a rope to the coffin Sensei is sleeping in and begins dragging it away. The cat girl asks if Annette should really be doing all this since she is supposed to be a clergyperson at the cathedral, but Annette is too busy trying to pull the coffin until the rope eventually snaps. As they continue walking, cat girl gets tired of having to drag the coffin around, so she asks Sensei to get out and walk on his own 2 feet. However, there is no response, so she starts worrying that Sensei might have actually died somehow. Annette checks his stats and Sensei seems to be fine, so he must just be asleep. They are pretty close to the castle anyway, so Annette asks cat girl to just bear with it for a little longer so they don't have to wake him up. Meanwhile, inside the coffin, Sensei is peacefully dreaming about his beloved Sakshan, and no matter where she is, he will make sure he finds her so they can both die together. But a while later, they finally arrive at the castle town of Roth, so Annette and cat girl open the coffin to let Sensei out. Sensei takes a look around the town, and he is now thoroughly convinced that he isn't in the same world anymore. Before they do anything, Annette says they should go to the castle and have an audience with the king, but they end up leaving the coffin in the middle of the road. Over at the castle, King Thomas and his daughter, Charlotte, are happy to meet them, and since they must be exhausted from such a long journey, he offers to let them all rest in the castle chambers for the night. But before that, he would love to hear some of Sensei's pleasant experiences. Sensei can't think of many pleasant things to talk about, but he did enjoy the coffin ride here, so he tells the king that he will teach him what it feels like to sleep in a coffin. Out of context, that clearly sounded like a threat, but Annette quickly changes the subject and compliments Charlotte on how beautiful she is. The king mentions that Charlotte is actually getting married soon, so he asks them for a little advice regarding Charlotte's suitors. Thomas calls for the men to be brought in, so we are introduced to the warrior, Gomes, and the wandering minstrel of love, Otto. Recently, due to the influence of the wrath of the demon lord, the activity of monsters has greatly increased recently. However, Thomas has grown too old to deal with the problem himself, so he decides that one of these two shall become Charlotte's husband and the next king of Roth. However, Charlotte doesn't seem to be on board with the idea since she hasn't chosen a husband yet. That's why he's leaving the choice up to a bunch of strangers he met 10 minutes ago. He wants them to pick who is more suitable to marry Charlotte between Gomes and Otto. But as the choice prompt shows up, Sensei does the sensible thing and says he has never met these men in his life. Charlotte's future hinges on this decision, so he thinks it's dumb to entrust it to a bunch of strangers like this, and if this is something he would do without a second thought, then he's not fit to be king. The king is left in shock, and after saying that, Sensei turns to leave while Annette and the cat girl frantically try to apologize for Sensei's actions. They try to explain that Sensei is from another world, so he's a bit blunt at times, but the king says it's fine since he isn't the type to hold a grudge, and Charlotte seems to have taken an interest in him. That night, while everyone else is asleep, Sensei spends his time looking out the window, so Annette gets up and asks him if he is having trouble falling asleep, so Sensei tells her that he just never sleeps well. Annette wants to take the opportunity to learn more about Sensei, so she asks him to tell her about Sakshan. But then she notices a tail pop out from under Sensei's sheets, so she takes the covers off and sees cat girl sleeping on Sensei's thighs. She won't stand for such debauchery unless she is the one who gets to sleep with Sensei, so she uses a pillow to smack cat girl and wake her up. Cat girl defends herself by saying it's cold and she's part cat, so it's totally normal for her to cuddle up to people for warmth. While Annette and cat girl continue arguing over this, Sensei gets up and leaves the room because of all the noise, and as he steps out into the hallway, he notices a beautiful light, so he goes out to look at the lake, and coincidentally, Charlotte is out here as well. Once she notices Sensei, she invites him to watch the lake with her since it's a beautiful night. Sensei agrees that the sight is very beautiful, so beautiful in fact that it makes him feel like drowning in the lake. Charlotte is shocked to hear him say this and asks if Sensei has enough problems to make him want to drown himself. But from what Sensei has seen so far, Charlotte seems a lot more trouble than him. After some silence, Charlotte confides in Sensei that she hasn't been able to make a decision between Gomes and Otto. Gomes had only recently arrived at the castle, but he is already the most reliable of their soldiers. Her father has faith in Gomes' strength, so she feels like she should probably choose him. But Otto is her childhood friend, and whenever she would feel down, he would always write a song and play it to make her feel better. She doesn't know whether to choose a husband whom she loves or one who would be the strongest king for the sake of her father. Sensei laughs at himself a little and says Charlotte is truly kind for worrying about what her father thinks to this extent, unlike Sensei, who has attempted to cancel his subscription to Life several times, always inconveniencing his family in the process. However, he has never once let someone else decide how he would live his life. He thinks Charlotte should make a decision based on what she wants, and to do that, she must figure out what her true desires are. The next day, King Thomas is called Sensei and the others to the throne room again, and he apologizes for the inconvenience, but he called them here because Charlotte has finally decided who she will marry, so he wants them to act as a witness to her choice. Annette thinks Charlotte will surely marry Gomes since she is likely to put the needs of the kingdom above her own, while Catgirl thinks Otto is a much better match for her. Thomas tells Charlotte to go up to the man she has chosen and to speak her vows to him. So Charlotte begins walking, however, instead of turning to Otto or Gomes, she grabs hold of Sensei's hand and says she wishes to drown in the lake with him. No one can believe what they just heard, especially Annette, who collapses to the ground. Charlotte goes on to explain her reasons, and after talking with Sensei last night, she thought about who to choose for a long time, and that led her to realize something. While initially she was leaning towards picking Otto since he always sang to her when she felt sad, she now recalls that he sang to her even when she wasn't sad, and he was even singing last night as well, and he never said he was in love with her. So he probably just wanted to perform his newest song for someone, and Charlotte just happened to be available to listen. And Gomes is a no-go as well since he smells awful. The king asks Charlotte to reconsider and choose a husband, which seems like an odd thing to be worried about after she declared her intentions to kick the bucket with Sensei. Charlotte snaps back at Thomas and tells him that it was a foolish idea to make her marry someone without asking for her opinion since she never even wanted to get married in the first place. In the end, Thomas never stopped to consider her feelings at all, but Sensei actually cared about what she thought and respected that it was her decision to make. Sensei now understands why Charlotte chose him, but before he can give her a response, Gomes takes off his helmet and says he never would have thought his cover would be blown because of his smell. He then transforms into his true form as a servant of the Dark Lord, and he says he had intended to acquire this kingdom by becoming its king so he could eventually hand it over to the Dark Lord, but his plan has been ruined since Charlotte saw through his disguise. Sensei looks over to Charlotte and asks her if she had figured out Gomes was a demon, but she had no idea whatsoever. She just said he smelled because he really does stink. That means Gomes just blew his cover for no reason, but he doesn't want to admit that he was mistaken, so now that his cover is blown, he says he will just kill them all. This is the exact kind of situation where a powerful priestess would be really helpful, but she is still currently unconscious, so Catgirl tries waking her up while Gomes is distracted with the guards. Unfortunately, the guards don't last very long, so Catgirl is forced to grab Annette's body and run to avoid being crushed by a pillar. Since Annette won't be waking up anytime soon, Catgirl decides to take matters into her own hands and fight Gomes herself. She is currently level 14, so she should be able to handle herself well in a fight. Since she'll be fighting, Otto offers to play her a song since he is level 89 and normally a buff would be applied to her. But it turns out that Otto is just playing his newest song and it has no effects attached to it, other than it being a certified hood classic according to Sensei. Catgirl has no other choice but to begin attacking on her own. So as Gomes charges at her, Catgirl ducks underneath and kicks him across the face. She then follows it up with a cat punch, but it didn't really do much damage to Gomes, so he's able to send Catgirl flying. He then says he will put everything he has into his next attack and tear Catgirl to shreds. But before he does that, Sensei gets his attention and asks Gomes to please eliminate him and Charlotte first. Gomes doesn't think Sensei is serious at first, but Sensei reiterates that now that Charlotte has broken free from her idiotic father's control, her first wish is to end it all alongside Sensei, and Sensei is always up for a good chance to kick the bucket, so he asks Gomes to grant him this favor. Gomes agrees to kill him, but he says that after he does that, he will go on to kill the king. And then he will burn the city to the ground while killing every last citizen inside it. Sensei doesn't really care what Gomes does since she would be dead by then anyway, but Charlotte is starting to have second thoughts about dying. As Gomes begins charging at them, she tells Sensei that she can't let herself die yet since she wants to stay alive and protect the kingdom. Sensei is glad to hear that Charlotte finally understands what she really wants, so since she wants to stay alive, he pushes her out of the way so that he is the only one who will be pulverized. As Gomes continues to charge straight at Sensei, Charlotte tries to convince him not to let himself get impaled, but luckily, at the same time, Annette had just woken up and she uses her power to cast a barrier of light in front of Sensei and shield him from Gomes' strike. She has vowed not to let Sensei die as long as she is by his side. so as Gomes tries to break through her shield, he ends up shattering his horns in the process, and now that Gomes is defenseless, Catgirl is able to land a blow that sends him flying through the castle wall and into the lake. Both Catgirl and Annette are relieved that they managed to survive, and since Annette really helped her out during the battle, Catgirl feels the need to thank her. Annette thanks Catgirl as well for her help, and the two of them seem to be getting along a lot better now. And Otto is still here, just playing his harp without a care in the world. Charlotte has a lot to think about after what just happened, but suddenly her father runs up to her and starts begging for forgiveness for not considering her feelings earlier. Sensei was right when he said Thomas isn't fit to be king, and he now realizes that he's not even fit to be Charlotte's father, so he sincerely asks Charlotte if she is willing to forgive him. Charlotte gets down and tells her father that she forgives him, and from now on, she would like to talk to him a lot about the future of this kingdom and themselves. Thomas is really happy that he was able to reconcile with Charlotte, and Charlotte is happy her father finally understands her, but all Sensei can think of is how Annette and Catgirl messed up his perfect chance to get game over. A while later, Thomas acknowledged that he wasn't fit to rule as king, so he abdicated the throne to Charlotte, who now does everything in her power to make sure the kingdom is kept safe. And Otto is still making songs since he's got nothing better to do. Meanwhile, Annette and Catgirl are busy dragging Sensei's coffin to their next destination, and they are talking about how bold it was for Charlotte to become the queen at the age of 16, but they are sure it will work out somehow. Sensei gets out of the coffin and says what's important is that Charlotte made the decision for herself and she is standing by it, which is something that Sensei thinks is beautiful. After driving Sensei for a long time, Catgirl asks Annette if they can take a break and she has gotten really tired. They covered a considerable amount of distance, so Annette thinks it's okay if they take a little break. Since they stopped, Sensei opens the coffin and asks if it is time to eat yet. Annette offers him some bread, but Sensei says he only eats boiled tofu, so if she doesn't have any, he's just going to go back to sleep. After the break, Catgirl asks how much longer it will take before they arrive at her house, and since Annette is the one with the map, she says it looks like it will take a few more days before they get to her hometown, but before that, Annette asks to make a stop at this Whiten Temple. Catgirl doesn't mind the delay, but she asks why Annette needs to go there, prompting her to start explaining the isekai process. Normally, otherworlders arrive in this world through one of the 4 temples and head to fight the Dark Lord from there. But since Sensei's goal is to find Sakshan rather than defeating the Dark Lord, Annette wants to head to the temples to see if they can gather any information regarding Sakshan's whereabouts. If they are unlucky, they might end up having to travel across the whole world, but Annette is totally ready to leave everything behind for Sensei. In all honesty, she doesn't want Sensei to fight the Dark Lord, even though it's her job to convince otherworlders to do it. She just doesn't want Sensei to be exposed to that kind of danger, so Catgirl trades her for being in love with Sensei. Annette denies any impure intentions, even if it's painfully obvious at this point. She tries claiming that Sensei gave her a breath of fresh air when she was beginning to give up on her job, so she wants to repay the favor and help him find the person he is looking for, that's all. Catgirl asks if that means Annette would be alright with it if she found out Sakshan was actually Sensei's lover or something. But while the mere thought of Sensei having a lover is painful, she still wants to confirm for herself if it turns out to be true. By the way, Catgirl wonders if Annette will even be allowed to enter this Whiten Temple since she kind of ditched her job to go on this journey. Annette doesn't think it's going to be an issue since she's good friends with the person in charge of this Whiten Temple, and it's not like she just abandoned her post either since she had her familiar send in an official resignation letter for her. And coincidentally, that same familiar is back and currently chewing on Sensei's head. After healing Sensei, Annette complains that her familiar is always causing problems for her, and now that she says it out loud, she realizes it might have been a bad idea to leave the delivery of her resignation letter to this thing. Her suspicions are confirmed when it spits up her resignation letter, so now it looks like she abandoned her post without notice, and she blames the familiar for it. Seeing the familiar fail so hard at its one job brings a smile to Sensei's face since he is a failure as well, so he names it Melos, and Melos takes an instant liking to Sensei. But Sensei doesn't really want a pet, so he just goes back into his coffin. Meanwhile, Annette is freaking out over the fact that she left her post without notice, so the temple is totally going to deny her unemployment claim later. Just then, Melos starts acting a little weird, and before long, he runs away, so something is clearly wrong. But it's not until a dragon descends from the mountaintop that they realize what Melos was trying to warn them about. A dragon is the strongest monster in the world, so Annette doesn't know what to do. But before the dragon attacks, a girl appears behind Annette and Catgirl, and she tells Ryuta to quit attacking random people. The girl then walks up to the dragon and begins petting it, so Annette and Catgirl are pretty confused by point. They've never heard of someone managing to tame a dragon before, so they ask who the girl is. However, she just turns to them and says there are a lot of monsters in the area, so they should hurry up and leave before they get hurt. In fact, it looks like one of their teammates has already died. Annette apologizes for the confusion and clarifies that Sensei is still very much alive. He is just a weird otherworlder, so he enjoys sleeping in a coffin. As soon as the girl hears that Sensei is an otherworlder, a switch flips in her head, so she removes her cloak, revealing that she's a dragon girl, and says she will kill all otherworlders. The amount of power coming from her body is intense, so as she fires a blast at them, Annette is just barely able to hold it back for a couple of seconds with her shield, but her shield isn't strong enough as the blast still does a lot of damage. They are left sprawled out on the floor, and they realize the dragon girl's power is far superior to theirs, but they are still determined to protect Sensei at all costs, so they get up to fight once more. However, the dragon girl has grown impatient with their meddling, so she uses her intense pressure to force them to the ground. And while they are unable to move, the girl stands over them, giving Annette a clear view of the mark on her neck, which she recognizes to be the mark of the wrathful Dark Lord. The Dark Lord is about to finish off Annette and Catgirl, but before she does, Sensei gets up and says there's no need for her to be so violent towards the others. She said her beef was with otherworlders, and that means the person she wants to eliminate is him. He tells her she is free to do whatever she likes to him. And since he isn't putting up a fight, the Dark Lord agrees to leave the others alone, and in the next moment, she punches a hole straight through Sensei's chest. As Sensei falls to the ground, the Dark Lord declares that her name is Waldelia, and she tells Sensei to rest in peace. But as she is leaving, Sensei gets back up and begins to laugh at the fact that Waldelia actually stabbed him. He can tell that she is harboring hatred within her heart since he once felt the same and wanted to stab someone. He even went as far as to write a threatening letter at the time, so he knows what it feels like to be consumed by hatred. Waldelia is starting to get freaked out at this point, but Sensei keeps getting closer and touches her cheek, hitting her with that dying man Reese. He says he would love to hear her story, but Waldelia isn't going to fall for his charms so easily, so she calls for Ryuka to get her out of here before she gets rizzed up. After she is gone, Sensei collapses once more since he still has a hole in his chest, but Melis is still around, so he finally makes himself useful and drags all of them to the temple, and upon seeing the poor condition Annette is in, she rushes to check on her. But Annette asks her to take care of Sensei first because he is in much worse condition. Isha sees it's really bad, so she calls for every healing potion and available priest to help Sensei recover. By the next day, Sensei is back up to full health, but he can't have that, so the first thing he does is go out and buy a bottle of poison to drink. While he does that, Annette thanks Isha for all her help and says she'll make sure to repay the favor someday. For now, Annette asks if Isha has come across an otherworlder named Sakshan by any chance, but she has never heard of her, so Isha assumes she must have been summoned to another temple. More importantly, Isha asks Annette why she is traveling with an otherworlder all of a sudden. She was shocked when she heard that Annette ditched her job, but she was also kind of relieved since she knew Annette was too kind-hearted to be exposed to this kind of job. However, she can't support Annette's decision to travel with an otherworlder since she should know from first-hand experience that they are all pretty much scumbags. They are given divine gifts to defeat the Dark Lord, yet all of them call their gifts overpowered skills and use them for dumb things like starting a failing rap career. This goofball is called Kotaro, and he was unfortunately given the power to destroy the world's economy by mass-producing gold coins. He offers to buy the girls whatever they want in return for some fun time, but Aisha throws his gold back in his face and tells him to leave because she is having a serious conversation over here. Kotaro was annoying, but he helped prove Aisha's point that otherworlders aren't good people. Anna tries to explain that Sensei isn't like the rest of the otherworlders, but Aisha doesn't believe it since Sensei's face says he's a destructive person. She warns Annette that being around Sensei will ruin her, but Annette doesn't think Sensei is a bad influence since she is sure she has changed for the better ever since she met Sensei. But her argument about Sensei being a good influence doesn't sound very convincing when he comes over to her asking for money to buy drugs, and she happily gives him as much money as he needs too, so Isha thinks Annette might be too far gone already. If Annette is already this attached to Sensei, Isha at least wants to know what kind of gift he has, but she is surprised when Annette tells her Sensei doesn't have a gift. And despite not having a gift, he still put himself in harm's way to protect her and Catgirl from the Dark Lord, but this statement shocks Isha even more as the Dark Lord was reportedly killed 7 days ago by some otherworlders. We then see the bloodstained throne of the former Dark Lord, and the otherworlder who killed the Dark Lord sitting on it. And from a distance, Waldelia looks on, swearing to avenge her father's death. A while later, Annette meets with Catgirl and informs her of the news that the Dark Lord was already slain 7 days ago. Isha received the news from the church yesterday, and it's a wonderful thing since it means peace had finally come to Zauberberg. But if it's true that the Dark Lord is dead, then who was the one who tried to kill him earlier? Anna doesn't know the answer to that question. And now that Catgirl thinks about it, didn't Sensei also show up 7 days ago? If the Dark Lord had already been defeated by then why was Sensei still summoned to this world? Just then, Sensei tears up his papers and collapses to the floor, so Catgirl asks what's wrong with him now. He explains that he has been trying to write about the events that have occurred since he arrived in this world, but he is struggling to find the words. Annette asks if he wrote anything about her, but Sensei says he didn't write about her at all. If anything, he got a surge of creativity after meeting Waldelia, so he would like to experience something similar to spark his creativity, but Catgirl says she's not going to do anything dangerous with him. Annette suggests they all go out into town to relax, and considering her future with Sensei, there are a few things Annette would like to buy for him. Upon entering town, Annette buys a huge set of heavy armor for Sensei to make sure he doesn't die, and Sensei doesn't really mind it since the tight feeling reminds him of his coffin. With Sensei's safety ensured, Annette and Catgirl head off to do some more shopping, so she asks Sensei not to go anywhere while they are gone. A while later, Aisha is walking through town where she sees a couple kids gathered around a suit of armor, and she's shocked to find Sensei snugly sitting inside. Ignoring the question of why he's in such huge armor, Aisha says there's something she wanted to talk to Sensei about. She says that from now on, Annette is going to be staying with her since she believes staying with Sensei will ultimately make her unhappy. She tells Sensei to dissolve his party with Annette immediately, but Sensei just grins and tells her that Annette is the only one who can decide whether she wants to stay with him or not, so it's not up to Aisha to decide for her. Besides, how can Aisha be so sure that Sensei will make Annette unhappy when she knows nothing about him? But the fact that he's an Otherworlder is all the proof she needs to know that Annette would be better off without him. Just then, Aisha hears an unsettling sound, and as she goes to investigate, she finds Kotaro introducing another Otherworlder, Suzuki, to the people. Suzuki tells the crowd that the Dark Lord has finally been defeated, so they all begin to cheer for the Otherworlders who gave them their freedom from the Dark Lord. Suzuki corrects the crowd since he wouldn't exactly call this being freed, it's more like they are under new management. He declares that from now on, this world will be ruled by the Otherworlders and Suzuki will be taking over this town. So he demands that all the people kneel to him. Just then, Kotaro spots Annette and tells that she's one of the elves who smacked coins in his face, so Suzuki gets up and yells at her for daring to harm an Otherworlder, and he's going to make sure she never does something like that again. This was the end of episode 3. Subscribe to not miss the next part.